Hello everybody, how are you doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to talk about some of Nintendo's next possible anniversary celebrations. Of course, anniversary celebrations in the Nintendo world is a pretty big conversation right now because 2021 happens to represent several anniversaries for Nintendo franchises, and there's even some non-Nintendo franchises celebrating anniversaries this year as well. It's really kind of a crazy coincidence how many different IPs are like converging in the year 2021. But it is what it is. It's definitely kind of cool. We've already seen last year's attempt at the Mario 35th anniversary celebration come and go. We're now at the end of that celebration. All eyes are currently locked on The Legend of Zelda and, of course, my favorite series, Metroid, as possible new celebrations we might still see this year. And now, of course, many of us have already talked about this topic to death, and I understand it. I, of course, have discussed it here and there on a couple of videos over the past few months as well. But, you know, there's more to talk about because, like I said, the big thing happening is we've now gone beyond March 31st, right? The day that we've all jokingly been counting down for the end of Mario, the death of Mario, Nintendo removing all of these Mario titles from the eShop and from retailers. A very baffling decision that doesn't really make a lot of sense to a lot of people. It's not something I'm losing sleep over, but I do agree it's a stupid choice. It is what it is, but this also potentially now puts us in that window, like I said, for Nintendo to use the rest of 2021 to maybe, hopefully, celebrate some of these other anniversaries. Of course, before we dive too much deeper into this Nintendo anniversary celebration topic, I do like to remind you that I am always trying to grow the channel here on Rule of Two Review. I upload several videos every single week talking about Nintendo, talking about Metroid, and covering all things gaming. So as you watch this video, if you seem to like what you see and what you hear, then hopefully you will consider subscribing to the channel. So going back to the Mario thing for a minute, I just want to quickly reiterate and reinforce some of what I said here. Obviously, it was a very divisive decision of Nintendo to celebrate the Mario 35th anniversary at the end of last year, which, to be fair, they probably planned on doing it much earlier. There were rumors and discussions that they were going to do something around the time of E3, but as we know, the pandemic changed everything for the whole gaming industry and also very much for Nintendo. So it seems like what they elected to do was wait till later in the year, where they held a Mario 35th Nintendo Direct celebration and they announced all sorts of different things. Mario 3D All-Stars, Mario 35, a Mario Game & Watch, and a couple of other things as well. And the big thing that came out of that was the fact that as of March 31st, which was about 6 months later from this direct presentation, and is of course the end of Nintendo's fiscal year, that they were going to be pulling and removing a lot of this Mario content that they were announcing for the 35th celebration. So Mario 3D All-Stars, as of this past week, is now no longer available, not only physically, but also from the eShop digitally, as well as the Mario 35 online digital game. So these things had people up in arms. And like I said in the beginning here, I just want to remind you that it's not something I'm super angry about. I knew it was going to happen, so I very happily and easily ordered and now own my physical copy of Mario 3D All-Stars. And so there you go. Like, I got what I needed. I had 6 months to buy it. I purchased it on day one. It arrived from Amazon like a week late, but I still got it. And so, you know, it is what it is. So like I said, I'm not losing sleep over it, but I will say I agree with a lot of people's frustration in the fact that it doesn't make any sense. I don't really know what it is they thought they were achieving. I guess there's some rumors out there that some people close to Nintendo say that Nintendo wanted to create the FOMO experience, the fear of missing out experience, which I don't know if that really makes a lot of sense because I don't think they needed that to sell a lot of copies of Mario 3D All-Stars. I mean, come on, man. That game was going to sell like crazy no matter what. There's no reason to limit it. But it is what it is, and if anything, what that does do is now put us at this point where we can officially say Mario's 35th year is now behind us, and here we are in the first week of April, where we're now in a new era, where maybe we might see Nintendo do the same things for The Legend of Zelda and hopefully also Metroid. And so, obviously, the big question becomes, will Nintendo do it? Will they celebrate Zelda and or Metroid, or maybe even Donkey Kong, by the way, which is celebrating 40 years this year? Not enough people are talking about that, but that is happening. But in general, I think we're all focused on Zelda and Metroid. So will Nintendo celebrate those this year? And you can call me like an overly optimistic person, but I do kind of think that, yeah, there's a great chance that we're going to see Nintendo do something to celebrate both of these franchises. And there's a couple of reasons. Many of them I've stated in prior videos and live streams, and I'm kind of compiling a lot of my thoughts here in this one video. So you might have heard me say some of this stuff, but I think it's important to reiterate in this video. There's reasons to believe both series might see some sort of release or celebration or acknowledgement from Nintendo. And to me, it's very exciting, and it's honestly something I struggle to see them not doing. I think that's the big thing, is I think you would have a harder time convincing me that Nintendo won't celebrate these games than that they will. Zelda is the franchise that most people are laser focused on. It's the bigger franchise than Metroid. It's the more popular franchise than Metroid. And I don't mind that, even as a Metroid super fan. Zelda happens to be my second favorite video game series of all time. So this is kind of a win-win for me. If we only get one of the two celebrated, I'm going to be A-okay, because Metroid is my favorite franchise, Zelda is my second favorite. And it's also the one that I think is honestly more likely. Like, yeah, I have reasons to believe that Nintendo would probably celebrate Metroid this year as well, but even more than that, I feel like Zelda almost has to be a lock. Especially after seeing what they did with Mario, Zelda is one of their other very top-tier, most important, best-selling franchises, like in their top 5 probably, of all of their IPs. And it goes back to their origins as a video game developer. I can't possibly see a world where they don't celebrate Zelda this year. Now, one of the main reasons I really think there's a good chance they're going to do that, and again, this is reiterating some points I've made in prior content as well, is honestly the fact that we already saw them address Zelda in 2021, right? I know a lot of people might not have read this the way I did, but I personally saw Eiji Aonuma appearing at that Nintendo Direct in February and announcing Skyward Sword HD and briefly mentioning Breath of the Wild 2 as a good sign for more celebrations to happen later this year. I understand how a lot of people might have interpreted that as a reason to think that this was the only thing they're giving us this year. This was Nintendo's one shot to talk about Zelda, to show new content, to talk about releases in 2021, and they only gave us Skyward Sword, they didn't show Breath of the Wild, and so that was it. I understand how people might have taken all of that away from it, but I really saw it as the opposite. It was the first Nintendo Direct in over a year. This was a year where we were expecting Zelda content because of the anniversary. We all expected to hopefully see Zelda or Breath of the Wild 2 at that show, and they did do it. I think that what they were doing was just opening the seal of the Zelda sort of experience in 2021, if you want to say, giving us just the first little morsel, and letting us know that more is going to come later. And, I mean, people, I think, aren't paying enough attention to the fact that Eiji Aonuma did say that there is more to show for Breath of the Wild 2 coming soon. Yeah, it sucks he didn't show it. Yes, it's giving us fears of Metroid Prime 4, like the game is going to be delayed, for years down the road. But I really, listened to what he said, and he said, the game is coming along great, okay? The opposite of Metroid Prime 4, by the way. He says the game is coming along great, and we're not ready to show it today, but we're going to show you more soon, so stay tuned. I'm all but sure, over the summer, during the E3 time, they're going to give us a blowout on Breath of the Wild 2, and I still put my money on 2021. I think that game is coming out this year. And in fact, that blowout of Breath of the Wild 2 is something I think might even happen in an anniversary 35th celebration kind of thing for Zelda. They might be planning another direct 10, 15, 20 minutes long, similar to the Mario one, maybe to release around the summer or E3, like I said, that's going to give us a bunch of Zelda stuff, and we're going to see Nintendo celebrate this amazing franchise and the fact that it's turning 35. And yes, I think confirming details about the current new game, Breath of the Wild 2, would be part of that. But then we also wonder, what other games would they give us? What other classic collections or releases or who knows whatever would they do? Is Skyward Sword part of that? Is Skyward Sword meant to be the only classic game they're releasing this year for celebration? Who knows, but a lot of us expect to see games like The Wind Waker or Twilight Princess, or maybe even crazier things like classic games like the Game Boy games show up. All of those are options, and I think that, honestly, some of those are very likely. I mean, how could we not see them bring Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, two games that have already been converted into HD, and beautifully, by the way, how could we not see them release those games on the Switch? Yeah, you could get into questions about how they're going to price it. They chose to do Skyward Sword HD and price it at $60, and a lot of people are upset, and I understand that. Maybe they would do Wind Waker and Twilight Princess as a package. Maybe they would do the same thing with those they did with Skyward Sword, and then more people are going to be mad, but also more people are going to buy them anyway, so it's like, what does it really matter? Either way, this is just all to say that, yeah, I think there's a great chance we're still going to see Zelda stuff this year to celebrate the anniversary. Now, of course, we have to talk about Metroid. We have to talk about my baby. Will we also see Nintendo address one of their most classic and revered and long-running franchises, Metroid? We have to remember, going back to the NES era, when Nintendo first broke into the home console video game scene, Mario and Samus and Link, and those franchises were really kind of the main first-party staples. Like, those were the initial big three that really got Nintendo going, and most of us associate some of the best games of that NES era with the Mario, Metroid, and Zelda franchise, right? And so, they've already done Mario. We all really believe Zelda is coming, like I just said. Are they going to do the same for Metroid, also celebrating 35th anniversary this year? And as I've already said, yeah, I think there's a good chance. I'll remind you, it is less likely than Zelda, okay? So I'm not going off the rails here. I'm not being delirious. I get that it's less likely than Zelda, but I still think it's possible, man. One of the main reasons I think that they will release or do something for Metroid this year and tie it to the 35th anniversary celebration is the simple fact that, just like the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, the Metroid Prime Trilogy collection already exists. It's so easy for Nintendo to celebrate Zelda's 35th anniversary by porting 2 other Zelda games that have already been made in HD, right? Just put those in a collection, put those 2 games together on the Switch, call it 35th anniversary, we're done, right? When it comes to Metroid, same thing, man. Yes, they've already converted Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. They're now converting Skyward Sword all to HD. Metroid Prime Trilogy has not been converted to HD, but I don't know why they wouldn't be willing to do it. The 3 games, the retail physical collection, they've already been released. The menus have already been created. It would be nice to see Nintendo update the menus for a new release, but regardless, it's what we already know. It's there. It's like Nintendo's already got it. All they have to do is bare minimum convert that sucker to HD and put it on the Switch, and people are going to be happy. Of course, we'd like to see more than just an HD polish. Update the graphics, update the lighting and textures and all of the visuals, maybe add new content, a couple of control schemes. Who knows? I mean, if they wanted to do that kind of stuff, it would go a long way to making it even more enticing than it already is. And like I said, all they have to do is tie that release to the 35th anniversary. Bob's your uncle, there you go. They've got some sort of Metroid anniversary release. That is just, it's something we've been expecting them to do for years. We thought it was going to come out 3 years ago. There were rumors about it, publicly and behind the scenes, and it still hasn't happened. How could they not have a plan to release the Prime Trilogy on the Switch? It's just, again, like I said at the beginning, you'd have a hard time convincing me they're not going to do it than that they are. I just know that they're going to do it, and this year is the time. Of course, that brings us to other Metroid content, and I've laid this stuff out in the past, stuff that could be part of a sort of a 35th anniversary celebration. If they did a Metroid Direct, that's like a 10-minute Direct to celebrate, they could announce, hey, here's Metroid Prime Trilogy HD. They could even announce something like a Samus Returns HD port. I think that that's kind of high on the list of being likely. Obviously, I have been talking about for a long time a new 2D Metroid game, and there's even been rumors about a new 2D Metroid game. That could be part of it. And you know what else they might do if they do an anniversary Direct for Metroid? They could show us the first trailer for Metroid Prime 4, by the way. And that does go back to a theory I've had for a while. As 2020 started to take shape with the pandemic and everything was going on there, I was like, I don't think Metroid Prime 4 is going to release in 2021, but I do believe this is the year we're probably going to see Metroid Prime 4 for the first time. And if we put this all together in this anniversary conversation, like I said, I picture a 10 or 15 minute Metroid Direct, and I really think the big stinger at the end, after all the game releases and stuff they talk about, here is the first trailer for Metroid Prime 4. And it doesn't have to be very extensive. It can be 30 seconds, but if you've got gameplay in that 30 seconds, trust me, it's going to make an impact, and most of us Metroid fans are going to be pretty happy with that. I know that some people might say that the Metroid franchise isn't big enough to warrant a big celebration the way Mario and Zelda would be, and I'm just going to say that, you can call me a fanboy if you want, and that's fine, but I'm just going to speak from the heart here. I just don't believe that. I truly don't believe that. I all but guarantee you that Nintendo has very strong reverence for the Metroid franchise. because like I said, you know, a couple of minutes ago here, it goes back to their origins in the video game home console space. It's one of their most important and most revered franchises. And yes, we know it's not a humongous seller like these other franchises that exist out there. Its best games have only sold in the 1 to 2 million range. Like, it's not a mammoth seller. And that is unfortunate, but I don't think that that means Nintendo cares about it any less, as crazy as that might sound. I think because they know it is a revered franchise with a diehard, passionate, very large fan base. They know that the games are synonymous with quality. Yeah, there's a couple of black sheep titles, I get that, but in general, it's synonymous with quality, and the industry cares about Samus as a character and the franchise. And so I think Nintendo would be willing to put effort into celebrating the anniversary and maybe even giving us a game release or two to coincide with that. And again, with the Prime Trilogy being such an easy gimme release, I just think it's coming, you guys. And so if you're a Metroid fan like I am, I think it's a good time to feel pretty excited and optimistic about this year. So these are my thoughts. This is what I think could be happening with the Direct and anniversary celebrations this year. Could we also see something for Donkey Kong? Yeah, we could. I didn't really want to focus too much on that because I don't have many strong opinions about it. I love Donkey Kong. I'd love a new game, don't get me wrong. But really, Zelda and Metroid are where I'm focused, as well as most of you guys, I think, as well. So between any 1 or 2 or 3 of these franchises, I just think something's going to happen, man. I think they opened the floodgates with the Mario thing. It was very successful for them. They made a great release that people really enjoyed. Like, okay, there were people who were mad about 3D All-Stars, but there were a lot of people who were excited about it. I'm very happy with it. And so Zelda and Metroid, Nintendo's not going to ignore them, you guys. I just don't think that's going to happen. So now that Mario's celebration is behind us, it's time for us to make room for more stuff about Zelda and Metroid. I think it's coming. I think this summer could end up being really exciting for a lot of us. So these are my thoughts and opinions. What do you guys think? Do you agree with kind of where my head is at with all of this? Do you have different thoughts? Whatever you think, talk about it below. And with that, this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Rule of 2 Review, and I will catch you next time on another video.